Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Basement Diaries, a series where we take a look at miscellaneous things in a dingy basement on a dingy sofa. I'm your host, Ephraim, and this was supposed to be the Halloween special, but I got lazy, and now it's less than a week till Thanksgiving, so hopefully this is out before Thanksgiving. So, in any case, happy early Thanksgiving. Take this as, I guess this is the Thanksgiving special. I don't know how many YouTubers do Thanksgiving specials, but I'm one of them now, I guess. Last time we were here, we were talking about a possible catfish. Still don't really know the solution to that whole fiasco. We were talking about a possible catfish on a site called Quotev, which was a fanfiction website. Still is a fanfiction website, even though it's mostly dormant. Since we just got done talking about Quotev, why not stick with Quotev and actually go into what I use Quotev to actually do, which is write shitty stories. In fact, we will be talking about a series that I wrote between the years of 2017 and 2018, which is a duology series titled Sister from Hell. Sister from Hell is a duology series I wrote between the summers of 2017 and 2018, and they're shit. They're other shit. Okay, well, I'm being a little hard on myself. They're not that bad, but like I was 12 and 13 when I wrote both of them, and I was very inexperienced in writing. My only experience up until that point was writing Danganronpa fanfiction killing games. So this is like my first time dabbling in like original fiction, and in all honesty, the potential's there. The passion's there. But everything else, it's not good. The series follows a 6th grader named Nico Zenith, who summons a demon on his last day of 6th grade, and pretty much hijinks ensue like immediately after. Nico is essentially a self-insert. At the very least, he starts out as a self-insert. I think I do a decent job of making him his own character, at least by the second book. But as all writers struggle from is making poorly disguised self-inserts. The first story in the series, Sister from Hell, very apt name, actually went on to be my most famous story, the best performing story out of everything I wrote on Quotev, which I still hate to this day. Even to this day, it still sits as like my best performing. And I even back then I hated that fact because I personally felt like I put a lot more effort into its sequel. I thought the sequel was like the epitome of writing, and that like everything should aspire to be it. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of better, but both of them are pretty shit. But especially the first story, and like I made that opinion very widely known when I started working on the second story. I went back to the first story and added like a little retroactive like pre-word to it, telling people like to like not read this first story, just go ahead and read the second story. You don't need you don't need to read this story. Actually, I'm gonna read it for y'all right now. Hold on, let me get this. Alright, here we go. Alright, so this is what I wrote back then. Hey guys, future Enzo from July 2018 here. If y'all don't know, I went by Enzo online for a brief period of time, so if you see Enzo, you know that's me. The following story you are about to read was written by a 12-year-old who was unprofessional and knew nothing about the right way to write a book. However, this book somehow blew up, and thus I made a cleaner sequel. You may read the sequel without having to read this book, as there aren't any major references to this book, and anything from this book that's in the sequel will generally be explained in it. While this may go without saying, I would also like to add that all my stories are entirely fictional, and any relation to any real-life persons, places, or things is entirely coincidental. So don't come running after my ass if you think I'm putting you in the story without your permission, because in all honesty, I'm not. This is your last chance to make a run for the sequel, which is much better than this waste of space on the internet. Thank you, Luz. Very aggressive. However, the sequel does have a little accolade of its own. It's actually the longest story I've ever written on my Quotev, which really isn't saying much. There's much longer pieces on Quotev, so my longest piece really doesn't even shine a candle. But, you know, both of them have their own little accolades. Originally, I wanted to talk about these two stories in a larger video where I went over my Quotev career as a whole, but when I got to scripting like this part and started giving my synopses for both stories, I ended up taking a much larger chunk of my script than I anticipated, and there really wasn't any way to condense it down, at least for me, because I wanted to go in depth about it. So I was like, I'll just make it its own video. We'll just talk. They're both crazy, wild, kooky stories, so I might as well just make it its own video. And like I said, it was intended to be the Halloween special, but now it's the Thanksgiving special. So nothing about, nothing like demons getting you into the Thanksgiving spirit, I guess. I don't know. So this video will obviously be in like 2 parts. We'll be talking about the first story in the first part, and then we'll be talking about the second story in the second part. So this is probably going to be a longer video again. I don't like doing longer videos, but it is what it is. But before we get into it, we gotta give some quick shoutouts. I promised to give out these shoutouts, and they are pretty much long overdue because I did not anticipate doing the video this late. So first shout out is going to go to Trash Dan Arts, or Isaac. He's been supporting me throughout my whole channel so far, which, I mean, I've only done like the 1 video, but he's always been supporting me, always been hyping me up, so I promised I'd give him a shout out. And, you know, if y'all like art and stuff, he seems to be an artist, so if y'all like art and stuff, check out Isaac's stuff. He seems really cool, he seems really dope. Thank you so much, Isaac, for supporting me, and I'm officially crowning you as the first official fan of my channel rebrand. Next shout out is going to go to Enlia Music. I used one of her songs in my video about, you know, the catfish, and not only did she comment on the video, because I guess you get notified when your music gets used in the video, but she also gave me a subscription. So thank you so much, Enlia. And your music is dope. If y'all got any personal projects on your own, and Leah does cool royalty-free music, check her stuff out. I think it's really dope. I'll probably be using one of her songs again, just because she's super cool. And I'm officially inducting Enlia into the royalty-free Hall of Fame. It's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's much cooler, and it's endorsed solely by me, myself, and I. So, Enlia, your trophy for the royalty-free Hall of Fame will be in the mail sometime shortly. Last shout out, and this is massive kudos to this entire community, no pun intended, is the Quotev subreddit. I posted my video on the Quotev subreddit one afternoon, and I went to like my play rehearsal. I came back, it was like 3 hours later, and before I posted the video on the subreddit, it had like 79 views. I came back, and it was already up to like 179 views, and then like maybe like an hour later, it surpassed 200. And then by the time I woke up the next morning, it was already at 400. And even to this day, I think it sits at like 577. So hopefully we can get 600 by the end of the year. Hopefully. But hopefully I should also be sending this video to the Quotev subreddit as well. So if I am, what's up? Hey, Quotev subreddit, thank you guys so much for blowing my video up. You guys don't know that did wonders for me. And now that video is like my best performing video out of like everything I've done on this channel. So that's really dope. And I'm hoping that y'all will blow this video up too. So thank you guys so much. And with all those thank yous and stuff out of the way, let's finally get into the video. Alright, so Sister from Hell. This was the first story I wrote, and I wrote this between the months of June and July 2017. It's actually just under a month. It was like 3 weeks. I don't know how I got that done, really, on the Sigma mindset all the way back then, so good for me, I guess. The cover I used is a really creepy cover, and I'm assuming I think I did get it off of Google, but I can't seem to find it anymore, so little lost media mystery for all y'all people to get into, I guess. I'm pretty sure I got it from Google, and like I can't find it anymore. So if y'all somehow know the source of this image, definitely reach out. I'm just curious to see what the source really is. All right, no more stalling. All right, let's get into the video. So let's see. Okay, so Story starts out with Nico. He's in his 6th grade classroom. It's his last day of 6th grade. He's chilling, he's vibing. It's all good, it's all cool. In comes Sarah. Now Sarah is Nico's crush. She's in 8th grade while she's walking into a 6th grade classroom. I don't know. So Nico and Sarah, they're cool, like they're already friends, but Sarah does have a boyfriend named Sanjay that Nico is aware of and is low-key jealous of. But like I said, they're already friends, they're cool, they're chills, whatever. Sarah basically starts chatting up with Nico. Sarah basically tells Nico that like, hey, like we're gonna hook up, very much like next to normal.
Honey, you need to slow down. Take some time for yourself. I'm going to have sex with your father. Hey, thanks. I'm so glad I know that.
School bell rings, ring, 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 whatever. Sarah gives Nico her numbers, like they can talk like during the summer and shit. So Nico stays behind to write it down, and once he writes it down, he's like the last person to have left the school. Everyone just seems to have Usain bolted their way out of the school. So he's in the hallway now, and he notices a note on the floor. And him being the very impulsive person he is, he decides to just read the note out loud. Why not? So let me pull up this note. Now this note is actually in Latin, and I actually took Latin in high school, so I should be able to read this precisely. Alright, so here we go. Sacte Lucifer et mite nuntius venit divinam auxilia mihi iritam quotidianam donec ex nunc in perpetuum vel usque ad moria quid est prius. Sounds like a lot of hoopla, and basically all it means is that, well, Nico just summoned a demon, and basically it just states that like once the demon is summoned, it's stuck with him forever, can't do anything to get rid of it, like pretty much until he dies. But anyway, to Nico, it just sounds like a lot of hoopla, but it isn't hoopla, because the school's now on fire. His whole entire school's on fire, the hallway's on fire, it's a whole mess. So Nico tries running for all these exits, they're all locked, conveniently, inconveniently. So finally, he ends up slipping on something while running. It ends up being blood. And it's a whole blood trail that actually leads to the school's basement. So Nico, again, just deciding to blindly follow along, decides to just follow this blood trail down into the school basement, and he sees this girl floating in the basement, and this is Emmy Lucifina. And Emmy's a demon, clearly, and she tells Nico as such. And basically, Emmy sort of acts like a genie, without all the rules. Actually, with rules that get broken in this story and in the next story, but especially this story. Because one of the biggest rules that Emmy says that she can't do is that she can't kill people, and she very much does kill people in this. But anyway, she can do virtually anything. She can even make people fall in love with her. So Nico is immediately like, "Can you break up like Sarah and Sanjay?" And Emmy doesn't even ask who Sarah or Sanjay is. She's just like, "All right, bet." They teleport to Sarah's house. How she knows where Sarah is, I don't know. There's some moments where Emmy is omnipotent, and there's other moments where Emmy is like dumb as bricks. But anyway, so they teleport to Sarah's house. Emmy's like Sarah's like sub twins, and I gotta explain this too. So basically, once Emmy has been summoned, everyone's brains like on Earth that like already knows Nico had like their memories altered. So they now think of Nico as having a twin sister, which is Emmy. So when people see Emmy and Nico together and they've already known Nico, they'll be like, "Oh, that's just his twin sister. It's not like some random girl that's with Nico on the side. No, it's just his twin sister." Don't know why I wrote it like that, especially because later in the story, it's implied that Emmy starts to catch feelings for Nico. I should have also mentioned this. A lot of early inspiration for this series, especially this story in particular, came from the likes of like anime I definitely should not be watching, like namely Data Live and To Love Room. Which, in fun fact, in Data Live, the main protagonist kisses his first cousin, maybe it's his second cousin. Not that it makes it any less gross, but I'm pretty sure it's his first cousin. Oh, somehow I got this wrong. Nah, they're brother and sister actually. See, Hold up. Okay, see, Shido Itsuka, that's the main guy. Adopted older brother. And let me look at let's look at this. All right. She is 13, 14, 15 throughout the show. And then bro is hold up. Bro is 16, 17, 18. There's a 3-year age difference. I don't know when the kiss happened, but like that's weird. I don't remember them being adopted siblings. Um, but anyway, Emmy's like, all right, I got all the information I need from Sarah. Poof, I can transform into Sarah. She can shapeshift. That's another power that demons have. They can perfectly shapeshift, even down to the fingerprint. So basically, what ends up happening next is that she calls up Sanjay. Don't know how she gets Sanjay's phone number. I'm pretty sure that wasn't exchanged in the conversation that she had with Sarah. But Emmy calls up Sanjay. She's like, "We're done. Go kill yourself." And then they go home. And Nico's like, "Where are my parents? You know, like I don't know where my parents don't seem to be home at the moment." And there's another note on on the living room table, and I'm not gonna read this like word for word, but basically all it says is that like it's from Lucifer himself. He's like, "Hey, I took your parents as like a price for you summoning Emmy. You'll get them back by like the end of the summer, or like when I'm done torturing them. I'll give them back to you when I feel like it. All right, so have some money. I left some money for you. Go have fun. Have a nice summer." And yeah, so Nico decides to just go to bed. This has been a very wild day. And he decides to go to bed. He's completely exhausted. He wakes up and his phone is being blown up by Sarah. And it's like super early in the morning. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I guess it's not that early. But his phone's getting blown up. Sarah's spam calling him. Nico's like, "The fuck you want?" And Sarah's like, "Hey, Nico, Sanjay's dead." And Nico's like, "Oh shit, Emmy, come out here. Sanjay's dead." And he keeps calling out for Emmy. Emmy's not responding. Nico's like, "Oh shit." So Emmy must be behind this. I gotta find Emmy, and I gotta find Sanjay. But like, I don't know where the hell Sanjay lives. But he does know someone who does know where Sanjay lives. In comes his next friend, Sophie. So he goes over to Sophie's house, and Sophie is another friend of Nico's, and she's in the same class as Sarah and Sanjay. So Nico goes over, and he's like, "Help me find Emmy, my sister, and help me find Sanjay. Oh, and by the way, Sanjay's dead." Sophie's like, "Bet." They run down the neighborhood trying to find, well, not really trying to find, since Sophie knows where Sanjay lives, but they're trying to go to Sanjay's house. They hear a scream, and they're like, "Oh my god, where did that come from?" And they happen to be right outside Sanjay's house. So they go straight inside to Sanjay's house, and they don't find Sanjay's body. They actually never find Sanjay's body. It's actually quite disturbing. But they do find Sarah's body. Sarah is dead. But, oddly enough, her wounds look self-inflicted, which that will be somewhat explained later. But before we can even begin to discover anything, gunshots start going off, bang, bang, bang. Emmy's got a gun, Emmy's strapped, and she's like, "All right, everyone, shut up, I'm about to blow this place up." And Nico gets in between her and Sophie. She's about to shoot Sophie, and Nico's like, "Emmy, you don't gotta do this. You don't gotta shoot people. Like, why are you acting like this? Like, you don't gotta do this." And Emmy's like, "Watch me." And before Emmy can successfully land a bullet on Sophie, Nico tackles her, and then Nico and Sophie like book it out of there. And then Sophie ends up like tripping on actually I think Emmy trips her. But Emmy trips Sophie. Nico like tries to go back and retrieve her. Emmy catches up with them. Emmy's like, "It's lights out, broski." And Nico's like, "I didn't want any of this. I did not want any of this. All I wanted you to do was break up Sarah and Sanjay. And now both of them are dead, probably. And you're probably gonna kill Sophie. And then you're probably gonna kill me. I didn't want any of this, alright? I'm done, alright? Like, go away." And Emmy's like, "I can't go away. You summoned me. I'm stuck with you forever." So Nico's like, "Well, if you're stuck with me forever until I die, I'm just kill myself now." And Emmy's like, "Wait, don't do that." But Nico's already made up his mind. But the way he decides to go about killing himself is the most prolonged way ever. So what he ends up doing, I don't know why I wrote it like this, but he decides to try and get himself run over, which seems simple enough, but he lives in a suburban neighborhood. He doesn't live by like an active highway, so he's banking on the idea that some car will just luckily be not paying attention and just like run him over. And the book says that like he stands there for like an hour just waiting for a car to come by. There's like a whole crowd of people like starting to form, pretty much telling him like not to do it. Like, don't jump, you have so much to live for. I guess don't let yourself get run over. You have so much to live for. And eventually a car does actually come by. It does get kind of close. It happens to just not be paying attention. Nico's waiting for the sweet release of death, and the car actually stops right in front of him. It actually stops just in time. It actually doesn't hit Nico, but all this built up suspense and build up, it ends up getting to that actually ends up getting to Nico, and he actually collapsed from like, I don't know, anxiousness, I guess. He passes out. He hits his head on the pavement. This is implied to be like fatal, actually. He hits his head so hard that like he seems to actually be like knocked out. But then next thing you know, he wakes up in his bed and Emmy actually revived him. So again, another power that demons seem to have, that they can just revive people. So Emmy's like, yeah, I saved you. You know, sorry for kind of being a douche. But also, by the way, I didn't kill Sarah and Sanjay. And here comes the convoluted Danganronpa murder plot. Okay, so because this is kind of cool in concept, but like it doesn't go anywhere. So what ended up happening was that after Nico went to bed the first night, Emmy, for like shits and giggles, decided to transform back into Sarah and like further taunt Sanjay about the breakup. And then Sanjay like had enough of it and was like, you know what, pull up tomorrow to my place, we can talk this out. Emmy, pretending to be Sarah, is like, bet. Emmy then goes to Sarah's house that night and is like, Sanjay wants to talk to you, you know, tomorrow morning. Sarah's like, bet, just blindly going along with it. Next morning comes around, Sarah goes to Sanjay's house. Sanjay's like, you're a bitch. Sarah's like, no, you. And then Sarah, out of rage and depression, which is what I wrote, don't know, again, very Shakespeare writing right here. Out of rage and depression, Sarah kills Sanjay, and then she kills herself, like out of guilt or whatever. So basically, after Emmy tells Nico all of this, she's like, I'm gonna go kill Sophie now. I don't like how close y'all two are. I'll just take her out of the picture. So Nico's like, I can't let that happen. So he goes over to Sophie's place again, and he's about to warn her about Emmy, but then Sophie is at the door, and he immediately knows that it's not Sophie, it's Emmy shapeshifting again. And Emmy herself told Nico what the dead giveaway was with shapeshifting. Because Emmy, unlike most people, she has red eyes. Like how some people have blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, Emmy has red eyes. And even when she's shapeshifting, she will always have these red eyes. And this imposter Sophie at the door has red eyes. So Nico, actually I'll just read this whole conversation now because it's quite funny. Alright, so Nico pulls up and Sophie's like, hey Nico, need something? I was caught off guard by the question and blushed. No, but have you seen Emmy? Did she run away again? This had to be Emmy's disguise. I think she might be at the funeral for it. Drop the act, Emmy. I know it's you. What act? It was worth it to fight with her. I could tell it was her by the red eyes, as if she never noticed them. Also, she was blushing. Sophie never blushes when I'm around. It's the other way around. And then I smelled something weird. It smelled like... oh, shit. Emmy, where is Sophie? Sophie was going to answer me. I'm Sophie. Explained the red eyes. Laser eye surgery. Then why do you still have glasses? Just for show. Well, then when is your birthday? Easy. It's, not this month. Nico shoves this imposter Sophie out of the way. The real Sophie's actually dead. Boo-hoo. And Nico cries like a bitch. He's like, bring her back. And then Emmy's like, alright, fine, whatever, I'll bring her back. And she brings her back to life. Woohoo, all's well in the world. Sophie decides to invite Nico back to her place that night to like talk things out because she thinks Emmy's weird. She doesn't even suspect that Emmy's like a demon. She just thinks that she's weird, and Nico's like, yeah, actually Emmy's a demon. I summoned her, and I'm low-key responsible for getting like Sarah and Sanjay killed ever since I summoned her. And Sophie's like, oh, okay, bet. That actually makes total logical sense. So next day, Nico wakes up. He went back to his place. He wakes up the next morning and he's not in his bed. He's in an abandoned warehouse. But he's not alone because he's there with Sophie and he's there with Emmy. And Sophie, now knowing that Emmy is a demon, Sophie now has a gun and she tells Nico, alright, kill Emmy. She's been causing all of this havoc within 3 days. It's been only like 3 days, by the way, that this all happened within pretty much a weekend. And she's like, alright, kill Emmy. Nico's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Emmy and Nico, they book it out of the warehouse, and that's basically the end. That's the end of her story, basically. Sophie gets caught and she gets arrested, and although she's only 14, because apparently this is 1944, she gets put on death row and she's executed. And Nico and Emmy, they're about to say goodbye. Like, Emmy's like, alright, I'm about to go back to hell. My time here's done. I did all I needed to do, even though this goes in direct contrast with what the contract said, but whatever. Nico's like, wait, don't go, I love you. And Emmy's like, okay, I love you too. Boom, story's done. And that's the end. So honestly, I think virtually anything could be better than this slop, and that's probably why I held the sequel in such high regard. But at least this story is straightforward, and although the pacing is atrocious, this all takes place within like 3 days. Like, Nico summons Emmy to break up Sarah and Sanjay. Next day, Sanjay's dead, Sarah's dead, Nico almost tries to kill himself, and then Sophie's dead. Next day, Nico wakes up in a warehouse, and Sophie is actually dead. So, it's a very straightforward book. Unlike the sequel, which we'll get to, the sequel is quite the piece of work. Wink, wink. But before we get into the sequel, we're actually going to take a quick intermission. This isn't a sponsored segment, don't worry, I do YouTube on the side. I won't be taking up sponsor segments, hopefully ever. But I do want to talk very briefly about a story I wrote even before this, just a bit of a palate cleanser. So feel free to refill your snacks, refill your water, and we'll dive back into the Sister from Hell duology after a very quick intermission. Welcome to the intermission. Today's intermission will be about a story I wrote in 4th grade that almost got me locked up. Not really, but I any other rational person would have sent me away to a psychiatric hospital after the short story I wrote in 4th grade. In retrospect, it really wasn't that disturbing, but it is a little disturbing only because this was a Catholic school I wrote this in, and I was a fairly cookie-cutter good kid up until this point. So basically in 4th grade, we had this assignment for vocabulary where we had to write a short story using either some of our vocabulary words for the week or all of them. And at this point, I had been getting into YouTube, and I saw on YouTube there was this video about this show called Whodunit. And Whodunit is basically like a murder mystery reality show. And basically, there's this one murderer who's selected at the beginning of the game, and they have to get to the end of the game without being caught successfully or whatever. So basically, on YouTube, there's a whole compilation of all of the deaths that happen within the show. So I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. And I didn't even get to dig around, but I was like a year later. In fact, I got this little guy right here, because originally I was going to talk about my Danganronpa fanfiction killing games, but I ended up doing this instead. So this guy, my purchase of this guy, it's not all for naught. I mean, he sits in my room, so it's not all bad. But say hello to my bootleg Monokuma. It's not the best, but I'd say it's pretty good if y'all looking for a Monokuma plushie. This is like 55 centimeters, so this is pretty close to what I'd say is like the life-size version. I don't know if it's the canon size or not. But anyway, I saw the video on YouTube. I was like, okay, this is cool. So I'm gonna make my story about this. So my short story for that class was a murder mystery, including all of my classmates. And I did not, first and foremost, I did not want to harm any of my classmates to any degree. Like, I definitely disliked some of my classmates, whether because like some bullied me or I just was annoyed by some of them, but I definitely did not want to inflict harm onto any of them. Of course, the ones I didn't like were the ones who were killed off first, but like I said, didn't have any ill will towards them in that regard. I didn't even do any of the killing. I think I might even have myself killed like first or like super early. I don't think I survived till the end. But basically, the killer was this one bitch in the class that like no one liked. She may have had like one like genuine friend. But anyway, she was the killer, and basically all the murders carried out were like, they were pretty gruesome, especially for a 4th grader. But even now, I remember one of the deaths specifically was directly from the Whodunit show. A woman like walks in and like this contraption, this like Ruth Goldberg, I think, not Ruth Bader Ginsburg machine. It's a Ruth Goldberg machine, goes off and basically it shoots like an arrow through like the woman's throat. So I know I definitely included a murder of my classmate getting shot that way. We were all like 10 or 11 at this point too. So like that, you know, even more disturbing. You know, bunch of preteens getting killed. But yeah, I wrote that, I submitted it, and then I had to talk to the teacher about it. Because I didn't think I did anything. I knew it was probably going to be different, but I didn't register in my mind that like this is like kind of a disturbing thing to write about. To me, it was just a murder mystery. And eventually I had to fess up being like, yeah, I mean, I don't hold any like of these feelings. I just saw this cool thing on YouTube and I wanted to replicate it. And yeah, that's all that was. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the story because, fun fact, this was all handwritten. I hand wrote this whole story. I'm pretty sure it's at least 2 pages, front and back. And it's long gone now because the teacher at the time, she's not even at the school anymore, and I'm not sure if she trashed it or maybe the principal has it, because the same principal is still there. Love her, by the way, great principal. She might still have it, maybe as maybe part of her records for whatever reason. Maybe if I work up the bravery, I can ask her for it. But yeah, I wish I could have it just for myself. Obviously, I think that's probably that probably is like the earliest example of like my writing like ever. So it sucks I can't have it. It's probably long trashed. It's probably it's probably the paper that's been recycled is probably like in a pencil now or something. So anyway, just wanted to share that quick little story before we go back into demons. And now let's take it back and let's go straight into the sequel. Alright, time to talk about the sequel, another demon story. I had very straightforward titles back in the day. Really not beating the self-insert accusations when I myself am posing on the cover of the book. But look at me go. Look at seventh grade me go. I'm really serving. But anyway, alright, so I wrote this between the months of March and July. And I definitely had a lot more fun writing this. I think that might have clouded how well the book actually is. Because although it is a little cleaner, it is somewhat more professional. The book mainly struggles from meandering a lot. It just kind of it struggles from not much really happening plot-wise until like the end. And the end, the actual like ending, like it's honestly kind of ass. So let's hop straight into it because it's super long-winded and nothing goes anywhere. We just gotta jump into it to make this as quick as possible. Okay, so Nico and Emmy, they're back, obviously, and it's their 7th grade year. It actually takes place like pretty much like in the middle of their 7th grade year. It takes place in March, at least it starts in March. So Nico and Emmy are living with Nico's aunt Reina. Lucifer never returned Nico's parents, I guess. We need all the excuses in the world to keep parents out of this world because parents don't exist. It's like Ed and Eddie up in this bitch. So Nico pulls up to school. We're introduced to a bunch of characters right off the bat. So let's just go. All right. So we got Mike. Mike is sort of like Nico's like half friend. Think like Evan Hansen and Jared Kleiman. Mike doesn't really like Nico that much, but Nico's like, "What's good, bestie?" Mike's like, "Shut up, twat." And then in comes Solemnity. Solemnity is now Nico's new crush, Sarah, who never heard of her. It's Solemnity season, and Nico's kind of like Solemnity for a while now, and they know of each other's existence, but they definitely aren't friends, at least to the degree that Sarah and Nico were. But Nico's like, "Hey, what's up, Solemnity?" And Solemnity's like, "The fuck you want?" Nico runs off, feeling embarrassed, I guess, and he tries to run for a bathroom, and he runs into Lars. Lars is sort of the school bully. Apparently, Nico and Lars actually used to be friends, and then Lars found out that Nico likes Solemnity, but Lars also likes Solemnity, so he started being like super cold towards him, and slowly Lars started to kind of like dissociate himself from like the rest of like his class and stuff. So yeah, it's a whole thing. But anyway, Nico like bumps into Lars. Lars is like, "Don't touch me, tall ass, or I'm gonna touch you." Nico's like, "You want to repeat the last part? I don't think I heard you clearly." And okay, I need to delve into this. Okay, so Lars is sort of part of like a gang. It's not even really a gang. It's just like these two older kids that listen to a middle schooler. Well, basically, what happens in the story is that these two older kids, or these two older men, they're adults, they're 19. These adult men, by Lars's direction, went off and like assaulted this other girl that goes to their middle school. This girl is Scylla, and Nico knows this fact. It's seemingly implied that like the whole school like knows this fact and like kind of fears Lars because they don't want to get on his bad side. And it's gross. I don't like how I wrote this. I mean, clearly I knew what assault was. I knew what rape was at like 13. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I wrote it like this was to immediately establish that like Lars is the bad guy and like you shouldn't root for him without giving him like any nuance. Which not all villains need nuance. You can just have a bad person and not give them like a sad backstory or like a reasoning for like why they're evil or whatever. But the way I went about it is just like really gross and I don't like it. And like at the same, like on one hand, sure, I was 13, I was immature, it was just kind of a stupid decision to write about, but it's also just like, ugh, like I don't know. It's even to this day, it still kind of disturbs me. And then even later in the story, when we actually do meet Scylla, it doesn't play into like her character like at all. Not that she's supposed to be like this tragedy porn of a character, but like we don't hear about how she struggles with how she's struggling, how it's affected her, and like you can pretty much take that part out of the story entirely, and like nothing changes. But basically, this is really only in the story to make Lars as like unrootable as possible. So, and I guess as a reason to like fear him or whatever. And Nico doesn't even know Scylla from that fact alone. Scylla is also like the textbook like popular girl that always has like people like surrounding her and stuff, and she even has like her own like inner posse of friends. And Nico knows her from that fact as well. So I don't know why I just didn't go with that, but whatever. Anyway, Lars like runs off. Emmy comes in. Emmy's like, "Yo, bro, I found something. Come with me." And they come across another hallway, and there happens to be another blood trail, and there happens to be another note. And Nico's like, "Oh shit, here we go again." He books it out of the school. So they get home. Emmy's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And Nico's like, "There's another demon on the loose. Like, this is how you were summoned. The blood trail, the note. Like, you don't see this. You don't see this." And Emmy's like, "Oh shit, okay. I don't like preparations. Alright, you stay lookout on the window. I'm gonna do my thing. So Nico is at the lookout, looking out the window, and he spots a familiar person. He spots a familiar girl. This familiar girl is none other than Sophie. And I seem to have read either this was a retcon or this is just my shitty memory when I wrote this, because last time when she died, she was executed on death row. And here, Nico mentions that she killed herself while she was serving out her prison sentence. So her death doesn't matter. I just thought that was a funny detail that I got wrong or retconned or whatever. The important thing is, Sophie's not alone. Sophie is here along with Lars. Lars seemingly summoned Sophie, and they're here to kill Nico and Emmy, I guess. I don't know. So Nico's like, it's Sophie and Lars. Emmy's like, fuck, what are we gonna do? And before they can do anything, the roof caves in. Crack, it's gone now. And it might seem like a medium inconvenience, but it also starts raining. And it starts raining like super hard, like hurricane levels. So without a roof, all the water is slowly starting to fill the house from the bottom up. So Nico and Emmy, they run up the stairs, and the only way they can get like all this water out is that if Nico can open like the front door from downstairs. And Emmy's like, you can swim, right? Nico's like, no. And then Emmy's like, we're gonna swim now. So Nico is able to just barely have enough air to get down, open the door, all the water goes out, and wipes out Sophie and Lars momentarily, but eventually they recover. Nico spots them going into his house, and then Nico, like an idiot, decides to follow them both inside, and they come to face to face, and Sophie is like, alright, time's up, I'm gonna shoot you now. And Nico's like, a gun? Really? Like, aren't you a demon? Don't you have like demon powers or whatever? And Sophie's like, shut up, alright, just let me kill you. And then Nico's like, I'll shut up when you kill me. And Sophie's like, alright, seriously, shut up, you're annoying me. And Nico's like, alright, come on, shoot me already, you pussy. So Sophie finally shoots, and it doesn't kill Nico. Emmy comes in last second, she redirects the bullet somehow, and kills Lars. Lars is now dead. And Sophie's like, alright, this isn't the end of me. I'm gonna bury Lars in your backyard. And Nico's like, alright, bet. And then next day at school. Alright, so next day at school, Nico arrives early and he spots Scylla, the girl I was talking about all before. So he spots Scylla. It's the first time that Scylla is like alone. Normally Scylla, like I mentioned before, is like always like surrounded with people and like has like her own inner posse. This is the first time Nico's actually like caught her like alone. And he's always been like low-key kind of like infatuated with her. He still likes Solemnity, but it's just like this weird like obsession, infatuation he has with her. So anyway, Scylla ends up catching Nico like sort of like checking her out a little bit. And she's like, the fuck you want? And Nico's like, oh shit, nice hair? And so like, oh my god, really? Like, I rushed this. This is like nothing. Like, oh my god. And then Nico's like, oh, shut up. You don't look rushed at all. You always look super great. And it's like, oh my god, thank you. Okay, we're totally friends now. And then Nico's like, alright, bet, I guess. So lunchtime comes around. Sophie like pulls up to Nico's school and is like, let's go out to lunch together. And then Scylla actually ends up running into both of them. And she's like, oh my god, Nico, hey, come meet with my friends, come meet with my friends. And Nico's like, alright, bet. And Sophie's like, alright, go fuck yourselves. So Nico goes with Scylla. They meet her friends, and her friends are largely inconsequential to the story. I'm gonna name them off right now. Alright, can I remember their names? I don't even remember their names. Alright, we got Miley, Sherry, and Winter. And Winter is like the only one that's like marginally important to the plot. So anyway, Winter is immediately like, I don't like this new guy. He seems kind of weird. And so it was like, okay, well, shut the fuck up. Like, I like him. He's cool. And Winter's like, all right, whatever. I want to talk to him. So Winter was actually off in the distance. She actually saw Nico, Scylla, and Sophie. So she was like, who was that blonde girl that was with you before Scylla came and took you? And Nico's like, no one special, just like a friend. And then she's like, okay, but then who's the other girl that you always walk into school with? She's talking about Emmy here. And she's like, there's always this girl that like walks into school with you, like what's her deal? And Nico's like, why are you so nosy? You just met me, like there's nothing sketchy going on, like fuck off. So she does fuck off promptly. And then Sherry comes in. Sherry's just like, hey, don't worry about Winter. Winter's kind of weird. She's like kind of the new one to the group, just like how you're new. And she's like, we don't really like her. And Nico's like, okay, bet. It's now the weekend. Nico and Emmy are chilling at home, and you get a news notification on their phone, and it's like, hey, news report, whatever news jingle there is. Teen boy Lars is still lost, and Nico's like, oh shoot, Sophie buried him in my backyard. I gotta dig him up. So they call over Sophie. They dig up the body, and Nico's like, you're not gonna do any funny business, right? And Sophie's like, don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. And Nico's like, that's not exactly what I said, but okay, good enough. So they go back inside, and seemingly all is chill in the world. And then immediately, well, not immediately, but pretty much like 10 minutes later, another news report. Murderer of Lars has been found. It is said to be a girl, another teen girl named Winter, that has killed Lars. And the news report is basically like, this witness that only wishes to be referred to as Sophie spotted Winter as she was walking home from a friend's house, and she saw Winter dragging this dead body along with a bloody shovel, and proceeded to bury Lars in her backyard. And this, in fact, was not Winter. Winter did not do this. It was Sophie, because she's a demon. She can also shapeshift. She shapeshifted into Winter, and you know, shapeshifting is super perfect down to the fingerprint. So basically, she reported Winter's fingerprints were found on this shovel, and Winter was promptly taken away and was arrested. And Nico and Emmy were like, oh shit, we gotta do something. So they pull up to school the next day. Mike, remember Mike? I don't. Mike is like, yo, did you see the news last night? Shit's wild. And Nico's like, indeed it is. And Mike is like, I'm pretty sure that Sophie girl, doesn't she go to this school? I'm pretty sure she goes to this school. I'm pretty sure I even heard Scylla and her group talking about it. Nico's like, I don't know. And then, boom, lightning strike. And Mike fucks out of there. And it's a bright and sunny day, first of all. Like, so there shouldn't really be lightning going off right now. And then Emmy comes in and is like, don't mention Sophie. She can sense us whenever we mention her. And then, boom, another lightning strike. And this time, there's a scream outside. So Nico and Emmy and a whole bunch of other students, they go outside, and there's a kid on the floor, some random kid on the ground. He's been struck by lightning. He's burnt to a crisp. And yeah, this is Sophie's doing. Sophie is apparently Zeus now, and she can just like strike lightning on Earth and on students. And this is all bad. And everyone's freaking out. And before Nico can do much of anything, he gets dragged away by some random kid. And this random kid is actually Solemnity. And Solemnity has been getting mad sus vibes from Nico. And she's like, this whole town has been like starting to get weird ever since you got here. And Nico's like, I don't know about that. And Solemnity is like, all right, whatever. I want to talk, but I don't want to talk here. And we got to find like an empty classroom, but I don't want to like run into anyone. And Nico's like, all right, let's take the vents. So they take the vents like Among Us, and they end up in an empty classroom. This is like first period, by the way, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's still pretty early into the school day. There shouldn't be time for all this tomfoolery. But Solemnity's like, I'm pretty sure you're the kid who burned down your middle school. And Nico's like, no, I'm not. And that doesn't seem to really affect Solemnity at all, because she's like, let me help you and Emmy take down Sophie. And Nico's like, all right, bet. So next day at school, Nico pulls up, and Scylla's there. Scylla comes around, and she's like, what's been going around the school lately? Things have been kind of weird. And Nico's like, oh, there's a magician. Yes, there's a magician that I pissed off, and she's causing all of this havoc, and I'm trying to stop her. And Scylla's like, oh, okay, that makes logical sense. Let me help you too. And Nico's like, all right, bet. So next day at school, this is now the next, or maybe it's the same day, I don't remember. Nico's like, all right, I recruited Scylla, and I also recruited Scylla's like whole group. And Emmy's like, this is the worst group ever. You suck at recruiting people. And Nico's like, wait, hold up. Like, here's Sophie's like, here, she's like causing all this havoc. She's like Zeusing kids from the skies, and she's causing all this havoc. You didn't seem to have this much power when I summoned you. And Emmy's like, yeah, once we're summoned, we're not allowed to kill people until like after a year, which is straight bullshit, because Emmy killed Sophie in the first story. Even if it was briefly, before she revived her, she still killed Sophie in the first story. And she even killed Lars in this story when she redirected the bullet. It still hadn't been a year yet. So again, I broke my own rules. It's whatever. But basically, they come to the conclusion that like Sophie was not summoned, and it was only staged as such. And it's kind of a cool plot twist, but this also doesn't really go anywhere. I didn't really explore it. It doesn't. It's not really elaborated on or worked upon. But this also explains why the school wasn't burned down either when they found the blood trail and the note, because that was only planted seemingly by Sophie to like throw them off or whatever. And it's also why Sophie didn't disappear when Lars died, because, you know, her master's dead now. So Nico's like, oh shit, Sophie was never summoned. And once he makes that realization, Nico's like dragged away, and he's in like this weird like cosmic space. He's like floating through space or whatever. And he's there with Sophie. And he's like, we got you, bitch. We knew you weren't summoned. And Sophie's like, all right, whatever. Like, I'll stop killing people. You just gotta dance with me at the school dance. And basically, the school dance is, Emmy mentioned it before, and basically Emmy has always wanted to go to the school dance because she thinks it's fun. She's never been to a school dance before. She's been dead until, you know, Nico summoned her. And Nico's like, all right, fine, whatever. I'll dance with you at the dance. Gets home, Nico's like, I'm not dancing with that crazy bitch. No way, no how. And Emmy's like, the fuck you are? Like, what? And then another news report, because, you know, this is, we're working on Disney Channel timing here. It turns out Mike, remember Mike? I don't. Mike kills himself. News report is about Mike killing himself. What ended up happening was that Mike killed himself in front of his parents, and he was like showing signs of resistance. And even the news reporter is like, I think he might have been possessed. We're not sure yet, but we're on standby, waiting to confirm whether or not he was possessed or not. And Nico and Emmy are like, oh shit. And then immediately afterwards, the woman's like, oh, hold up, we got more news. And it turns out that Mike's parents have decided to join hands and jump in front of an oncoming truck and kill themselves. And now they're dead. So Sophie's death toll is astronomical at this point. Nico and Emmy are finally like, all right, we need to stop Sophie. This has gone too far. And then knock on the door. Someone's at the door. And it's not Sophie, thankfully. It's Winter. Winter has escaped from jail. And she's like, I escaped from jail. Let me help you take down Sophie. Nico's like, bet. Next day at school, the squad pulls up. They're all ready to throw punches with a demon, and you know it's about to be a nice epic showdown. So Nico steps outside of the school. He almost gets run over again by a car. Emmy stops in just in time to save him. Sophie comes up and she's like, it's the end, broski. Nico's like, nuh-uh. And then you would think an epic fight would go down after introducing all of these characters, after all this meandering, and after all of these countless deaths. You would think there would be a nice epic fight to put an end to this crazy story. Nope. No, none of that happens. Yeah, Nico just kind of Steven Universes his way out of this. Let me read what I wrote here. Guys, I step forward, speaking on behalf of pretty much everyone and everything. We shouldn't have to settle this violently. The biggest problem is, well, me. I've been so concerned about how people look at me and how they see me at a glance. But you, Sophie, helped me realize how much I worried about myself and my reputation. And I finally found people who I can call friends. I'm sorry I can't call you a friend, or my girlfriend, or my partners to the dance next week, but that shouldn't lead you to try killing all of us. Seriously, Zenith, you're not making a point, Sophie said. I forgot to said there, somehow. You're just saying a bunch of useless nonsense that everyone's heard in 1,000 ways, and even in 1,000 songs, some with the same 4 chords. Bo Burnham reference right there. But all I'm asking for is a simple dance. is that all too much for you? You said you weren't worried about how people may view you anymore, so just go ahead and dance with me. I honestly would, Sophie, because you're a great person. No, she's not. I don't know where you got that from. But you made one mistake. You killed people. Called a more than a big mistake, whatever. Most notably, Mike and okay, well they're not really notable. Mike is largely forgettable, and Lars died all the way in like this. I think he died like chapter 2. So yeah, basically, Nico just kind of yaps Sophie's ear off, and eventually he's like, I'm not gonna dance with no freaky zombie demon freak. And she's like, all right, let's just kill ourselves then, so we can be dead together. Nico's like, bet. So they form what seems to be a suicide pact, and then Sophie, like an idiot, is the only one that actually ends up killing herself, and that's the end. Yeah, that's the end. That's how they end. That's how they kill Sophie, by tricking her into killing herself. And then there's a small little epilogue where they're all at the dance together, and Scylla and Nico are crowned the dance king and queen. And then Nico and Emmy, however, are the ones that end up sharing the dance. It's a cute moment. It's cool. It's whatever. And yeah, that's the end of that very long-winded story that doesn't go anywhere. So let's give some final thoughts. So that's my Sister from Hell duology series. This was pretty much my first and last attempt at writing original fiction, and I gotta say it was shit. I mean, both of them struggle from either going too fast or being too slow. The second one, as much as I liked working on it and thinking I was being like more sophisticated with it and stuff, it's a giant nothing burger. It's just inflated with like nothing happening until the end. Like the first 2 chapters actually has some action, and then the ending has some action, and then the rest of it is just kind of Nico and Emmy like kind of just fucking around, like doing middle school stuff. Even Emmy barely has much of a presence in the second story. She's just massively sidelined, at least compared to the first story. And even the first story, as inexperienced and as shoddily written as it was, at least it was straightforward. But even then, I mean, it still doesn't. It moves super fast and doesn't have any real sense of pacing. So yeah, there was actually another sequel I wrote that actually took place in place of Another Demon Story. Another Demon Story was not the original sequel. The original sequel was The Misadventures of Hell. And basically, I didn't get too far into this. I only wrote like 1 chapter of it. But basically, the main plot of that would be Nico and Emmy are now in high school. It takes place like during like their freshman year of high school. And Nico goes to bed one night. He wakes up, and what he thinks is his house. It's not his house. He's actually in hell. And he finds a note, and it's like, Emmy is gone, like go find Emmy. And the whole story would have been Nico like traveling through hell trying to find Emmy again, and that would have been cool. I don't know why I didn't stick with that. I guess I really wanted to stick with the slice of life middle school stuff for whatever reason. Even now, I'm not done with the franchise just yet. Just last year, I started on the very early stages of working on a 3rd and final installment. This was going to be pretty much like a requel, like a reboot sequel of the series. It takes place in a new universe, but there's still demons. It takes place in a high school universe, so it's a little bit more mature, and obviously I'm a much more seasoned writer now, but I've also haven't written in like book form in a hot minute. I'm a playwright now, and hopefully one of my future videos will be talking about the plays I've written, but it'll definitely be fun going back and trying to finish the story, this series off. And even now, like I going back to the 2 stories, I'm like, there's potential here. I think I might even do like a redux of the both 2 stories, like rewrite them, probably keep them close to the canon. I think it would only be fair to keep the established canon I established and give myself a bit of a challenge and not try to change too much of it. And if I can, I mean, I have the direct blueprints to both stories. All I gotta do is just write it out, and if I can bang those out and then bang, you know, the requel out, then yeah, I'd have a whole trilogy, and that would be dope. I've even thought about even adapting like the first story mainly, maybe the second story, into like a stage show. I don't know how that would happen. I don't know. I have going back down memory lane, and I'm just thinking of all these ways to go back to a simpler time where I really enjoyed writing. I still like writing. I still enjoy writing, but I have a job now, so I can't dedicate as much time as I want to writing. Another odd thing is that so the name Nico, I settled on the name Nico because at the time I'd gotten into this YouTuber named Nico B, and I thought the name Nico was so cool that I decided to name the character Nico after Nico B. And today I have befriended someone also named Nico. So no matter whenever I think of my friend Nico, I always go back to my series. And the two of them share nothing alike. Nico's a dude. My friend Nico is not a dude. So no similarities in any degree. But Nico, if you're watching this, what's up? Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video, and I'm assuming this is probably I told myself I didn't want to do longer videos, and I'm afraid of how long this video is going to turn out. But I appreciate y'all for sticking around with me. And once again, I want to give another quick shout out again to Isaac, Trash Gen Arts, Enlia Music, and the Clotev subreddit. Y'all are dope. And hopefully next video will not be as long. Hopefully, finally. But until then, I'm Ephraim. This has been the Basement Diaries, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.